What's up guys, welcome to another video on the channel. Thank you in advance for stopping by. Something completely different today, something I've never attempted before, and that is doing a book review. Now, before you click off thinking I didn't come here to listen about your thoughts on Harry Potter, it is still DJing related. I'm going to be reviewing this book here, which is Rock the Dance Floor by Phil Morse. Now, if you don't know who Phil Morse is, he runs an extremely successful organisation called Digital DJ Tips. He has an extremely well-established YouTube channel. There is a link in the description down below because it is one channel that I do recommend. He has a very active Facebook group called the Global DJ Network, and loads of people contribute into that on a daily basis. It's a very active Facebook group. And if you go onto the Digital DJ Tips website, you can buy a whole range of different DJ courses on there if you're into that type of thing as well. If Phil is watching this, I'm pretty sure he isn't, but if he is, well, just a big congratulations to you on the success of your platform. So in terms of why I picked up this book in the first place, I was just genuinely intrigued to know how much you can actually learn about DJing from written text, like a book. When I started DJing all those years ago, I very much learnt by doing. It was just practice, 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 practice. And I was kind of thinking to myself, can you actually learn a lot from a book? And that's why I picked up the book and then I read it and I thought, you know what, it would be good to do a video about it. So in terms of how I'm going to structure this review, well, the book is broken down into 5 key chapters or stages. The first is gear, the second is music, the third is techniques, fourth playing out, and the fifth is promoting yourself. I'll do a bit of a summary and my opinion on each of the different chapters or stages, and then I'll give my overall opinion about the book at the end of the review. So the first chapter in this book, or first stage in this book, is all about DJ gear, and I'm going to say from the outset, this is a fantastic chapter to read if you are a new or inexperienced DJ and you are not sure what you are looking for. And the reason why it's so good is that it will not make a decision for you. It tells you about all the different options that you should be looking for. It tells you about things to consider when buying particular hardware or software, and it allows you to then make that decision yourself. So you can read these points here as a bit of a starting point, and then you can go off, do your own research and make an informed decision. The one thing I always find is that when you post a question online as a new or beginner DJ into a forum on Facebook or wherever it may be, is that you'll get a load of DJs replying to you going, you've got to buy Pioneer, or you've got to buy Denon, or if it's a question about a laptop, you'll get a load of people saying you need to buy Apple because of XYZ, or you need to buy Windows because of this. Okay, and that isn't really that helpful, whereas what this book does is it gives you the key things to think about without steering you down a particular route of a particular brand or or a particular manufacturer, which is great. In terms of software, it talks about all of the different options and what the different options do, which I really enjoyed reading, even as an experienced DJ. And again, like I said, throughout the whole chapter, it allows you as the DJ, it puts that control back in your hands, and then you can go off and make that informed decision. Okay, so we move on to chapter 2, which is all about music. Now, as an experienced DJ, this is actually the chapter that I found the most useful out of the entire book, because these days I actually find as a DJ music quite overwhelming. Back when I started, it was a case of listening to the radio, hearing other DJs play in nightclubs, going to a record shop, listening to tracks, and then buying your music. Nowadays, you've got music on Spotify, you've got music on Apple Music, you've even got music on TikTok. That's becoming big. Other DJs, of course, playing music. There is just music absolutely everywhere. And I actually find it quite hard to shortlist music and work out what's big, what am I going to play, what am I not going to play. And I really like the model in this book, which is like a pyramid model. So it breaks it down right at the bottom. You've got all of the world's music. One stage higher is the music that you're going to hear. Stage higher than that is the music that you shortlist, and then the next level up is music that you buy, etc., etc. And throughout the chapter, it actually gives you advice on how to go about shortlisting music and how to actually narrow that shortlist down into music that you will then go out and purchase. As an experienced DJ, this has been extremely useful for me, and it's helped me to, I guess, think about buying music in a slightly different way, because at one stage, with all of the the music, how it's consumed these days, I would just try and buy absolutely everything. I'd end up with loads of music on my laptop that I had no intention of playing. So actually this has helped me the most out of all of the chapters. So if you're an experienced DJ or if you're a new DJ, this chapter in the book is going to be extremely useful for you. At the top end of the pyramid, there's even tips on how to prepare, import and tag your music for gigs, and then also how to actually go from having a playlist to the set that you're going to play in the club. Next up, it's chapter 3, which is all about DJ techniques. And this is, again, a very detailed chapter, but for me personally, it was probably the least useful out of all of the chapters or stages in this book. Now, the reason why I say this is because I simply read this book from cover to cover. And when we're talking about practical things, so for example, in this chapter, he covers off DJ transitions. What will be quite useful is if you have your decks next to the book. So you read a bit, you then go off and practice, you then come back and read the next section. That is how I would recommend reading this chapter. Doing what I did and just reading through the different transitions, I personally don't think it's very useful. So I would approach it with that way. It is very well described. The transitions, the description, you can't get better out of a book is what I would say. But I think it's one of those chapters where you read a bit, you gain the knowledge, go off and practice, then come back and read the next section. But that is just my way of learning. That is my way of doing things. Nevertheless, it's still a very thorough chapter, and also it's very well written. It breaks things down in very simple language, but you need to go off and practice in order to learn the techniques fully. You're not going to just get the technique by reading a paragraph in a book. The next chapter in the book is all about playing out, a very comprehensive chapter, and it gives you absolutely everything that you need to think about, especially if you are playing out for the first time. It includes information on how to pack your DJ set, so for example, how to select the music that you're going to take, right the way through to how to pack your DJ bag, what things to include, what things to leave at home, how to set up for gigs, how to behave at DJ gigs, overcoming nerves, building your confidence, and also some tips on how to play at bars, how to play at clubs, and also how to play at mobile discos as well. So something in there regardless of your style or the type of DJ that you are. Now, a lot of this is now second nature to me, where I've been doing it for a number of years, but even now I still get nervous when I turn up to a brand new venue to DJ at. So still some useful tips on how to overcome nerves, for example. That page in the book is going to be still quite useful for me. The section on how to behave at DJ gigs also was extremely interesting. Now, there's been times when I have turned up to DJ, there's been a warm-up DJ that perhaps is a little bit inexperienced, and they turn up completely wasted, and surprise, surprise, they don't get booked again. Or they do the other thing and they turn up with 50 mates. Well, all of that stuff is addressed in this chapter. If you are a more experienced DJ, some of it will seem like common sense and it's a bit obvious, but at the same time, if you are new and an inexperienced DJ, some of it may not be as obvious to you. So I would recommend having a read through before your first gig. The final chapter of the book then is all about promoting yourself. And again, another extremely comprehensive chapter covering everything that you could possibly want about promoting yourself as a DJ, from the basics of getting yourself a DJ name right the way through to researching and getting gigs, how to get the right gigs. Do you want to consider mobile DJing? Do you want to run your own events? All of those different options are explored here and some advice given. Now, one of the most common questions that I get asked at gigs, probably on a weekly basis when I am allowed to play out, is how do I get my gigs? Who do I need to speak to? How much do I get paid? How do you get a foot in the door? And this book gives you a lot of different ideas and options on how to do that. If you are a beginner DJ and you feel like you're ready to step out into the big wide world of getting DJ gigs, but you really have no idea on where to start, then this chapter I could not recommend anymore. But also it gives you some different options depending on the route of DJing that you want to go down. For example, doing mobile discos is very different to DJing in a bar or a nightclub. So this covers all of those options. There are also some tips in this chapter about becoming a music producer as well. It isn't that comprehensive, so I think there are probably other better sources out there, but definitely some food for thought if you want to become a DJ and a producer as well. So there we have it, guys. My opinions of the 5 chapters of Rock the Dance Floor by Phil Morse. In terms of my recommendation, would I recommend reading it? Yes, I would. I was actually very pleasantly surprised how good of a read it was, especially for new DJs, but there's also some great tips in there for experienced DJs as well. So regardless of what level of DJing you're at, then there is something in here for everyone. Is this book on its own going to make you a great DJ? The answer is no, because you do need to practice as a DJ. You need to get yourself some kit, you need to get some tunes and get practicing, you know. Practice, practice, practice until you feel confident enough to go and get some gigs. And to be honest, even when you get gigs, you know, you only become better through experience. So I think that is the limitation of a book such as this. However, great advice from cover to cover throughout this book in terms of how to approach different elements of DJing. It's a bit like the highway code. You could read the highway code, you know all of the rules of the road, but that doesn't make you a great driver. Okay, it's all about practice and gaining that experience. Thank you to Phil for putting this book together. I'm sure it's helped many hundreds of thousands of DJs across the globe get started. Hope you liked this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below to let me know your thoughts. Maybe you've read this book, maybe you haven't, and I will see you in the next video.